DEFCON 5, codenamed Fade Out, represents normal peacetime readiness. This is the baseline condition for the US military. Operations continue on scheduled routines such as training exercises, equipment maintenance, and strategic planning. There are no credible threats of large-scale military attack. In practical terms, DEFCON 5 means that military personnel operate on normal duty cycles. Bases and installations are secure, but they function with standard security procedures rather than heightened measures. Naval fleets may conduct deployments planned months or even years in advance. For example, a carrier strike group could be sent to the Pacific for a scheduled 6-month deployment, focusing on training exercises with allies rather than preparing for combat. Army brigades may rotate through multinational drills, such as NATO exercises in Europe, with no sense of imminent threat. The posture at DEFCON 5 is about maintaining readiness without urgency. Intelligence collection continues, but at normal levels rather than expanded surveillance. Command centers function with regular staffing levels, and rapid response forces are not placed on special alert. The overall assumption is global stability with no expectation of immediate large-scale conflict. DEFCON 4, codenamed Double Take, marks a shift from routine operations to increased vigilance. While still technically a peacetime condition, this level is triggered when events raise the risk of instability or conflict. The purpose of DEFCON 4 is to improve situational awareness and prepare for the possibility that a crisis could develop. Operationally, DEFCON 4 involves expanded intelligence gathering. Reconnaissance satellites may be redirected to monitor a specific region more closely, and signals intelligence teams intensify their analysis of communications traffic. Military installations and embassies tighten security, increasing patrols and enforcing stricter access controls. Personnel may be required to remain closer to their duty stations, reducing the time needed to mobilize if the situation worsens. This state is not only about military posture but also about deterrence. By raising to DEFCON 4, the US signals both internally and externally that it is monitoring events carefully and will not be caught off guard. For example, during periods of political instability in a nuclear-armed nation, regional US forces might be elevated to DEFCON 4. Though DEFCON 4 does not mean conflict is imminent, it is an early warning posture. It ensures that forces can escalate quickly if the situation deteriorates, bridging the gap between routine readiness and wartime preparation. DEFCON 3, codenamed Roundhouse, signals a serious increase in force readiness. At this level, military units prepare for the possibility of rapid deployment. One of the clearest requirements is that the US Air Force must be able to launch strategic bomber wings within 15 minutes of receiving an order. This short timeline represents a dramatic escalation from normal peacetime conditions. When raised to DEFCON 3, various branches of the military shift posture. Air defense systems are placed on continuous standby, ensuring that fighter aircraft can scramble at a moment's notice. Additional surveillance aircraft may be deployed, and command centers conduct constant communications checks to confirm that no technical failures could slow down an emergency response. Personnel are often kept on extended duty hours or placed on call, reducing any delays in mobilization. DEFCON 3 serves as both preparation and warning. Militarily, it ensures rapid response capability. Politically, it sends a message to potential adversaries that the US is positioned for immediate action. This signaling effect is important because it can deter escalation by making it clear that any aggressive move would be met with overwhelming force. Historically, DEFCON 3 has been used in high-stakes moments. During the Yom Kippur War of 1973, when Israel was under attack by Egypt and Syria, the Soviet Union threatened to intervene. This was a calculated warning that Soviet involvement could result in direct confrontation. Another example came after the September 11, 2001 terrorist attacks, when the US military was raised to DEFCON 3 due to uncertainty about whether more attacks were imminent. These examples show how DEFCON 3 functions as a tool for both deterrence and readiness in unpredictable situations. DEFCON 2, codenamed Fast Pace, represents the brink of war. At this level, the US military prepares to engage in major combat operations within 6 hours. It is not a symbolic posture. It is a direct acknowledgement that large-scale war, potentially involving nuclear weapons, is a distinct possibility. Operationally, DEFCON 2 places the entire military on near maximum alert. Strategic bombers may be launched into airborne holding patterns, flying close to their potential targets so that they can strike immediately if ordered. Intercontinental ballistic missile crews insert their launch keys and stand ready to fire on command. Submarines carrying nuclear missiles position themselves for rapid response. Ground forces shift into full combat readiness, with logistics and supply lines primed for immediate deployment. Command posts are reinforced, and the President is often moved to secure facilities, such as underground bunkers or airborne command centers. Historically, the most notable case of DEFCON 2 occurred during the Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962. When U.S. reconnaissance confirmed that the Soviet Union had placed nuclear missiles in Cuba just 90 miles from American shores, the situation escalated rapidly. President John F. Kennedy ordered a naval blockade of the island, and U.S. Strategic Air Command was raised to DEFCON 2. For several days, nuclear bombers remained airborne, missile crews sat ready, and the world came dangerously close to all-out nuclear war. This remains the only confirmed instance where the U.S. has reached DEFCON 2. Another period sometimes associated with regional DEFCON 2 postures occurred during the Persian Gulf War in 1991, when U.S. forces and coalition partners prepared for a large-scale campaign against Iraq. Though not as globally severe as the Cuban Missile Crisis, the posture reflected the real possibility that the conflict could escalate further. DEFCON 1, codenamed Cocked Pistol, is the maximum state of military readiness. This level is not a warning, it is the confirmation that a major strategic attack is either imminent or already underway. DEFCON 1 is synonymous with nuclear war. At DEFCON 1, all U.S. command and control systems shift into wartime mode. Nuclear launch authority is decentralized to ensure that retaliatory strikes can still occur, even if Washington, D.C. is destroyed. Pre-planned nuclear war strategies are executed, meaning targets have already been assigned and forces are prepared to act without delay. The President and top officials may be in airborne command centers, coordinating survival and retaliation measures. Every branch of the military is actively mobilized with nuclear, conventional, and defensive forces fully engaged. In practical terms, DEFCON 1 would likely involve satellite detection of a massive launch of enemy intercontinental ballistic missiles. Upon confirmation of such an attack, the United States would declare DEFCON 1 and immediately execute its nuclear response plan. Strategic bombers already airborne would proceed to their targets, submarines would launch ballistic missiles, and ground-based missile crews would carry out pre-authorized strikes. The world has never officially reached DEFCON 1. It remains a theoretical state, used only in hypothetical war planning and training exercises. A scenario that could trigger DEFCON 1 would be a confirmed large-scale nuclear launch against the US or its allies. In such a case, the DEFCON system would move from deterrence and readiness into the actual execution of nuclear war. While DEFCON 1 represents the absolute peak of US military readiness, modern conflicts are increasingly defined by precision strikes, drone warfare, and asymmetric tactics. To understand how these technologies shape today's battlefield, let's take a closer look at Ukraine's use of kamikaze drones, every model explained in detail.